Hello, everybody. Thanks everyone so much for coming. For those that don't know me, I'm hosting this webinar. My name is Terry Williams. I am from Clever Fox Creative, which is obviously a web design and development business. And so just while everyone's on, feel free to tell us who you are and what your business name is, and introduce yourself in the chat, because you don't know who else might be coming along and might want to reach out and things like that as well. But otherwise, we will get started. So down the bottom of your screen, there's going to be a couple of controls down there. So there'll be one for chat and there'll be one for Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, don't wait till the end to ask them. Just pop them in as you're listening along. And that way, when we get to the Q&A section of the webinar, Tom can graciously answer all the questions we might have. I'll probably have 100 of them because I'm learning at the same time as everyone else, which is nice. So yeah, feel free to, and there's no dumb questions or anything like that either. So make sure you do that. And yeah, so I am so excited to introduce my guy, Tom Hendrick today. Tom, give us a holler and a wave.
Yeah, a Zoom clap, yeah.
Zoom claps. Awesome. So just to introduce everyone a little bit more to Tom, I'm assuming a lot of people may not have met Tom before. So formerly a tax lawyer with a top-tier Australian law firm, Finlaysons. Am I saying that right? Hopefully. Yeah, Tom is a professional public speaker and trainer. Tom has worked with government, including the Australian Tax Office, professional associations, including the Institute of Public Accountants, individuals and businesses large and small. So Tom's approach to public speaking and public speaking training is to, one, achieve tangible outcomes when you present, aka get a return on your investment. Two, finding ways to reduce preparation time, aka time is precious, so precious. And three, eliminating presentation dead space by using principles distilled from great speakers, so learning from the best. And I have personally taken courses with Tom, and it's amazing. So I'm so grateful for you to hop on with me, Tom, and teach everyone some awesome goodness. And yes, again, we all know who I am. And a lot of people return visitors from previous webinars as well. So I'm not going to touch too much and toot my own horn too much. So we'll get into it. So who this webinar is going to be really perfect for is anyone looking to improve their networking skills. Pop a shout out in the chat if you're already a part of any networking groups, such as BNI is one of them, for example, or maybe business owners looking to make better connections when they catch up with people or go to events and things like that as well, or professionals who benefit from finding and bringing work into their business. So just like that, I'm going to hand over to Tom. Take it away, sir.
Thank you, Terry. What a warm introduction. I'm just buzzing. That was better than a cup of coffee. So hello, everyone who's watching on Zoom. My name is Tom Hendrick. My business is Adelaide Speaking Training, and I have a bit of a weird job. I used to have a very sensible job as a lawyer and a tax lawyer, no less, but I made the very logical progression to become a professional public speaker, as tax lawyers want to do. I basically network for a living, as well as similar to like a personal fitness trainer. I do speaking training for people. So I do lots of one-on-one sessions with people, and I do group classes. And every now and again, I like to not just teach, but do. So I might be an MC, I might do a keynote speech at the Adelaide Convention Centre, some things, training sessions and webinars like this on Zoom with Terry. And so that's just a little bit about me. And one thing that I'm very passionate about, as Terry mentioned in my introduction before, is to make sure that when people speak and they put effort into speaking, that they get something out of it. And networking is just one of those things that I see time and time again, people not getting a return on investment that was well and truly within their grasp at that networking event. So many times people go to a networking event, there's genuinely some good people and connections in the room, but things seem to never progress past small talk. It's hard to meet new people. Maybe they're in a group and you can't sort of break open that group and have a turn talking to the person you want to talk to. Maybe you just get nervous, you don't know what to say, or maybe the conversation is really good, but it just doesn't turn into action. So those are sort of the things that we're going to be highlighting today. When you go to a networking event, that's time out of your day that you otherwise could have spent doing something else, like being with your family or earning more money. And you're going to spend it on networking, and it's a worthwhile thing to do, but we're going to learn how to get the most out of it. And so this is the outline that we're going to go through in my presentation. That's just a picture of me. I want to talk to you about the difference between networking versus net wasting time, which is what most people tend to do when they go to those events. And in order to break this down, I've got 3 steps to better networking. I want to explain this concept of interest hill. That is this diagram of a hill where it sort of shows, you can use that to gauge whether the person you're talking to has any interest in you or what you do, or whether you have any interest in them and what they do. You might be able to pass a referral to them or do some business for them and build some goodwill with each other. And then in order to make sure that your conversations are going somewhere and they achieve some sort of outcome, I like to think of them in terms of have statements, want statements, and why statements. And this is sort of your answer to the question, how do I move from small talk to more productive conversations? And it's going to be to choose a have, want, or a why statement. And you'll find that those naturally make progress with conversations in regards to networking. And the last thing, this is so important, but it's so simple, is how to talk all that good talk and that good energy into something tangible and some action. And that's as simple as asking the person to block out time in their Google Calendar. And that way that the conversation just doesn't die in the room. You've got an actionable, you might meet up first thing next day or early next week, or, you can take people out for coffee, but you can also be a bit cool and take them out for wine. I think cool people take people out for wine. Much better conversations, after the end of the day. So before progressing, I'd just like to briefly talk about the difference between networking and net wasting time. So I like to think of networking as you're going to an event for the purposes of achieving some kind of outcome, and that you've got some systematic way of doing that. And the one thing that I would strongly warn against, and this is a trap for young players, is even though you might have a method or a system that you're using, humans are empathetic creatures and they're very trust heavy. If a human thinks that you're a robot and you're running, like game on them and you're just using them as a checkbox, that kind of thing, you'll find that you will instantly lose all credibility with people. So these methods are very loose. They're just ideas to help you make progress in a conversation. I'm not going to give you a robotic script to follow. I'm going to give you concepts to understand and to use when you find you're getting lost in a networking session. And that's to be contrasted with net wasting time. The opposite of going in with a plan would be to go in without any plan whatsoever, just to rock up to the event and to meander around the room and not actually be thinking about who's the best connection for you, who's most interested in you, who are you most interested in, and how you can have a conversation that's productive, structured, and well thought out, based on good principles and not just winging it. And so that's really the difference between networking and net wasting time. Networking is to go in there with some sort of plan, but not a script. And net wasting time would be to go in with no plan and just to wing it and not do things based on good principles. So let's look at some good principles. Interest hill. Whoops, this diagram's upside down. That looks an awful lot like the Nike symbol. So we're going to turn it upside down. There we go. Now it's a hill. And I've put some numbers on there. Now, I don't like labeling people, but for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to label people. So ones, as you see, they're over the hill and they're falling down the edge. I love ones because ones can see the value in what you do and they want more. Twos, they're on the teetering at the top of the hill. They can also see the value of what you do. They're on top of the hill. They can see the value of what you do, but they need a small concession before they roll down the hill and they buy what you're selling or they want to engage with you. And here's the thing. Too many times we meet threes. Threes aren't fully up the hill yet. They don't see the value in what you do. They need still to be convinced of what you do has value or is relevant to them. And they also need some encouragement, I think, to engage with you. Like, give an example later on. And then there are fours, and fours are funny people. Fours are people who are stubborn and they're on a completely different wavelength to you. If I'm a public speaking coach, they're the sort of people who'd say, you will not catch me dead at a public speaking training event, or, I will not ever do any public speaking. And there's no point in me as a public speaking person in a networking environment to try and justify what I do and explain myself and discount myself and spend all that time with a person who just doesn't see the value and doesn't want to contribute or engage with me, to try and get them up the hill. That is way too much effort. So the satisfying thing to know about this interest hill is that when you start talking to someone, you'll very quickly see if they're a one or a two. And there's enough one or twos in the world that they're the only people you should ever care about. So don't be tempted trying to pull a 3 up the hill when they don't want to come up. You'll find that they'll naturally come up and over the hill, and they'll find interest in what you're doing. If they see 2s rolling over the hill, they'll be like, oh, that person seems to be enjoying public speaking training or whatever it is that you provide. Maybe I need to step up my game too. But I wouldn't try to, discount yourself or spend time on those sort of people. So I'll just give you a quick example based on my business. So I'm a public speaking trainer. And if I speak to someone at a networking event, say my name's Tom Hendrick and I do public speaking training. And one will say something like, you're a public speaking trainer. I love speaking. I want to get better. I'll adjust my schedule because I want to do your course. I'm so intrigued and fascinated. I might speak to some 2s and be like, I'm a public speaking trainer. And I might say, I really do need to improve my speaking, but I'm not sure whether I should do a course. How much does it cost? What time is it? How would it help? They ask more questions, that sort of thing. So they're interested, but they need like a small concession from you. And then if I'm talking to a 3, I say I'm a public speaking trainer, they might say something like, yeah, I could see how speaking training could help some people. I'm not sure I'm convinced I should do it. Can you give me a special discount? Can I get a free sample? Can you do it at my house for free? All that kind of stuff. And then again, those 4s that I mentioned before, I go, I'm a public speaking trainer. And then they basically, they try to run. They say, just no. They call the police. They say, public speaking, that's illegal. Not even if you paid me would I come, and they're on a different wavelength to me entirely. And so in your profession, you might identify some 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And I'd just like to pause for a second and go to Terry. Terry, do we have any capacity to do a Q&A session at this point?
Yeah, if you'd like to, go for it.
I'd love to see who's in the chat, what profession you are, and if this resonates with you entirely, like if you could do a quick list of who would be an ideal 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. And I can do a list too if you'd like, just as an example. So for me, 1s are people who already enjoy public speaking and just want more. So university students, for example, also people like Toastmasters members, people who are part of networking groups like Showcase SA, Business SA, BNI, speakers from like Rostrum or debating clubs, like they're already speaking every week competitively or for their job, and they just want to get better. And if they speak better, they do better. And so that's like a 1 for me. 2s might be people who've recently stepped into like a management position. So it might be a team leader, someone who used to be a technical officer, maybe in the public service, and they're now a team leader. And like, I've got to speak to my team every week in a meeting, and I just don't know how to motivate them, or I don't know how to make my meetings more interesting. A 2 might be someone who's like a lawyer, who is like, I've got to do a lot of conversations with clients or presentations in front of a law society. I'm terrified, I need some help, but I'm not sure I need help. Maybe it might help, but I'm not sure. 3s, and then there's so many of those people who could see the value in public speaking but aren't entirely sold on it. And then 4s, people who have got not just stage fright, but just no interest at all in speaking. Maybe they don't engage with people during the day, that sort of thing.
Just makes them really uncomfortable kind of thing.
Yeah. How would you articulate that as a Q&A? Who are your 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s? You can just pick one.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a shy chat on this question, but for me, I think like a 1 would be, and correct me if I'm wrong because you know me pretty well, is people that are like new in business, so they're super excited because they understand that they want to do it right and they want to do it properly, and so they understand the value of working with people that can make it amazing rather than just getting something done, essentially. Versus maybe a 2 would be people that have been in business for a little while, so they're maybe a little bit more budget conscious and a little less like, it's like new puppy kind of feel when it's new business, like everything's really exciting. So if you've been in business for 10 years, getting a new website might not be as exciting as if it's like your brand new baby business and stuff like that. So I think that would be a 2.
Do you find that you get more people who get to you as their second website or get to you as their first website?
It's pretty split, but I would say probably second, just slightly more than first, because it's a lot of people that have been going around for a few years, haven't done it right for the first time around, and then realize that it actually did affect the amount of business that they could bring in because it wasn't done right the first time. So we get a lot of that. where people are kind of second thinking their online presence and stuff like that. But it's pretty evenly split down the middle, to be honest.
Do you find that you get people who come to you when they're ready for a rebrand? So maybe it's their first website, but not their first business, that kind of thing?
First website, but not their first business.
So they're coming to you for a rebrand or like a big transformation, that kind of thing. Is that something?
Yeah, for sure. We get that a lot with businesses that are like evolving in the way of, so for example, we're getting a lot of building businesses recently. And I think a large amount of that is because especially because they're high-end builders and things. So it's really important that their online presence is really good. But as a part of that, it's like when you look at your competitors, you realize you're not doing enough. And so we do a lot of those sorts of rebrands where it's like, oh, let's look as good as what we are skill-wise, versus, like a few years ago, it didn't matter as much because people weren't online as much. So what you look like in terms of your online presence or your branding or whatever it is wasn't as necessarily important because you'd been in front of people more versus now. So it's the changing landscape has really changed the type of people that come for branding and stuff as well.
Interesting. Just one more question for you, Terry, because this is really interesting just to do a worked example like this. The twos that you work with, so you can see that people want to engage your services and they're interested. What sort of concessions are you sort of willing to help walk people through? And, like, where do you think the line is between, this person just needs a bit of help to then be a customer and engage with me versus someone who you feel like you're really discounting yourself, like you're really, like taking all the, for lack of a better word, you feel like they're just trying to throw you a bone, or they're sort of, it feels like you're pushing them up the hill kind of feeling.
Yeah, for sure. So like what do we, when you say concessions, do you mean like what do we use to try and get people over the line? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so like someone might be all like, we really need a new website and we're just concerned about this, that, or the other, versus someone who's all like, I'm inquiring about a website and what can you do for me? And, what are your prices, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, normally like the way that we go about those sorts of things is I never quote right off the bat for people in general anyway, because I think it's really important that I understand fully what their vision is. And so like having a catch up and talking about it, there will be the people who are maybe freeze, I guess, that will email and be like, hey, I want a website, I need a quote, that kind of thing. And then when I offer, like, let's grab coffee and actually talk about it, they might go away, or it'll be like a bit of a fight to even just catch up with them. Versus the people that are more like probably twos is like they want to catch up because they want you to understand, oh my Lord, I need to plug my laptop in. You keep talking for 2 seconds.
Okay, yeah, all right, I'll take over the conversation. The point of this is one of the first steps in networking. So if you're looking at the guest list or you're looking around the room, someone's asked you, is there someone I can introduce you to? Think about your 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Where are your easy wins? Where are your, meaty referrals? Like the ones where, think of your best client, try to copy paste them. And what would they look like if they're in the room right now? Because if you can only spend an hour or two at a networking event, you want to spend as much of that as possible talking with great people. I'll give you a quick example of this. So I went to a 60th recently, and this 60th was off the wall. It was like magic themed. Everyone was in costumes. This person was quite wealthy. They'd splashed a lot of money, and I didn't even know the person. Basically, I was a +1 from somebody. And, as a public speaking coach, I'm looking for people like authors or researchers, people who want to do like a TED talk. I can curate and help get them their application through. People who are an author and they want to do like a book tour and want to talk about the book and do some social media and stuff like that. And there's also a lot of people in there who are like, say, a manager at Santos who, it may have been interesting. And maybe there was a soft connection to Santos there, but like, they're not necessarily my 1s and 2s. Like you sort of have to, there's a process to like get in there, and that could have been a lot of heavy lifting. But what I did see was this person at the 60th actually had some performers come in, had friends who are like magicians and stand-up comedians and things like that. And one of the comedians was actually quite a famous comedian. I won't drop her name to protect the innocent, but she's been doing stand-up comedy for over 20 years. She's been on TV and things like that. And I immediately wanted to talk to her because I knew that she's a 1. She does public speaking all the time. She does podcasts, she does stand-up shows, big and small. And she needs, like jokes, like on her tool belt, basically. And so I talk to her, and I talk about how I talk to her in the next slide. But basically the idea is I identified her as a one. Someone who speaks for a living, they earn money if they speak well, they get repeat gigs if they speak well. That's the kind of person that I want. That's like an ideal client for me, and I want as many of those as possible. So I would pick that person out of the room of many because I think about this sort of hill structure. And that brings me into my next point, which is when you actually have these conversations, what should you be talking about to make progress? And I like the idea of everyone is wealthy in some way. So you might not be financially wealthy. If you are, that's fantastic. But you might have a wealth of knowledge, or you might have a really good service, or you might have a really powerful network and you know someone who can get things done and that kind of stuff. And that's a good thing to demonstrate in a conversation. And there's like a really smooth way of being able to do that. And it's just to say something like, I have been running networking sessions for Clever Fox Creative, they're a web design company. And then that brings me to the next point, want statements. And I want to do more sessions with universities. And what's interesting about this have and want is that it sort of says, I am wealthy in this regard. So, I'm well connected with someone like Clever Fox Creative and web designers, but I want to be more connected with universities. And when you pitch that at a random person, and so they ask you what you do, you go, hi, my name's Tom, I'm a public speaking coach. I've been running some networking sessions for web designers like Clever Fox, and I want to do more sessions with universities and their students and help them pitch, in competitions and things like that. When they have those two bits of information, they'll grab, your audience will grab onto one of those. They might go, oh, web designers and public speaking, like that's interesting. Like, how does that work? And then if they're interested, you explain, and then they might ask more questions, and they might say, my friend's a web designer. And they've been looking to do more webinars and stuff. But, that I think you guys would get along really well. Instant connection, because they see I'm wealthy in one regard and they want more of that. And then if I say, and I'm actually looking to do more sessions with universities, I might go, oh, my wife, works for universities, and she's in the nutrition department, and I would love to put you in touch with that. And that's an example exactly that happened recently to me about a week or two ago. And so just by saying I have and I want, it says I'm wealthy in this regard and I'd like to be wealthier in that regard. And the person, if they're wealthy in that regard, will pipe up about that. And if they're needy in one regard, or they've heard of something, it gives them something to talk about. Where that doesn't happen is when you say, oh, so how was your weekend? There's no opportunity to explain how wealthy they are in a way. And there's a lot of cryptic responses that come from that. How was your weekend? Oh, I had my child's first birthday. Oh, cool. What else did you do? Like you see how that goes. But if you're smart, you can actually maybe cryptically follow the clues, but it gets hard. Like, oh, 1-year-old's birthday. Oh, so like, are you in you might ask, this is a strange follow-up question, but you might say, are you in your forever house right now? And they might say, oh, no, we're looking to actually sell this house, buy a new one, upsize, and we're looking to have another child and all that kind of stuff. And maybe in the back of my mind somewhere, I've got some lawyer friends or real estate friends who might be interested in that conversation. That's really hard work. And it's not about me. And it's, it seems like a weird way to spend a conversation. I think small talk is good to some extent. It's mainly there just to gain likability. I think like that you might compliment someone on how they look. Like Terry has fantastic purple hair right now. I would love to know how she did that and who did that for her.
I can dye your hair purple if you want, Tom.
Can you? That's fantastic. My girlfriend would like to get her hair tends to not stay one color very often. So like if yours has got some lasting capability to it. Terry is wealthy in one regard and actually clearly knows some amazing hairdressers. So you can even use have and want statements for small talk. And again, this is just a really open-ended concept. I'm wealthy in this regard, I'm letting people know, and I'm needy or I'm interested in another regard. And you'll quickly find out based on how people respond, whether or not they're ones or twos, threes or fours. If you say something like, I've been running networking sessions for professionals and I help people network better so that they can, do better when they go to networking events such as these and actually land work. And I want to do more pitch coaching with universities. And if they go, oh, what else you do? Or how's your weekend? That kind of thing. You immediately go, not a 1, not a 2, but a 3 or a 4. They're not, helpful. They're not interested in what I'm talking about. And what that does is it lets you quickly end the conversation politely and move on to someone who might be, more interested. And we'll talk about how to gracefully leave a conversation later on. But that's the concept of have and want statements. Were you wealthy? And if you're talking to someone, how can you let them know that they're wealthy in some regard? And that's where real connection and proper networking happens. And then once you've, given some examples about have and want statements, have and want statements, often a natural progression to that is a why statement. And I think of it this way. What you do, like as a business, is kind of like throwing a party. You're often not trying to be all things to all people. You usually have a target market or a demographic or an industry or other businesses that you're trying to get a lot of your work from. And so you should celebrate that. And your business should be unique to you. And it should be something you're really passionate about. And so when you give a why statement, you should be explaining to people the party that your business is, like who you're trying to celebrate, what you're trying to do, and how you're trying to be, and what the specific thing you're trying to champion. And then you'll see when you throw a party and people want to come to that party, they'll let you know instantly. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of a why statement, and I'll show you how it can potentially attract people who want to learn more about you and would also want to choose you specifically as the provider. That's the real power of a why statement. There might be lots of web designers out there. There might be lots of public speaking coaches out there or opportunities to practice one's public speaking. But why would they come to me and not Toastmasters or Rostrum or join a debate club or go to another trainer, that kind of thing? Why would they go to Terry and not some other, web designer? And so I'll show you an example of a why statement. So Tom, like, how did you get into what you do? And I go, I run public speaking skills courses. And I started my business because I want to help people run towards the microphone, not away from it. That's my why. And I might even elaborate and go, when I was 15 years old, I did a 1-hour stand-up comedy show in front of my whole school. I absolutely loved public speaking and I couldn't get enough of it. But I wasn't always that confident when I was 15. I remember being 13 years old and I would just mumble down the front of my shit. I was not confident at all. And so my why is that I learned some skills and I just got so interested when I saw that public speaking and being able to speak well could open doors for me. And I only needed a few little tricks here and there and tips, and a little bit of practice to get better. It's like a teachable skill that they don't teach at schools. And I want to teach it. And that's my why. And so people would then resonate with that. Go, oh, that's a party I want to come to. I could elaborate further about my business. And just to be a bit self-indulgent at the moment, I like to think of my business as like a personal fitness trainer business. If you go to a personal fitness trainer, the fitness trainer isn't going to do all the exercise for you and you have to go home and do it. They're going to explain and demonstrate something for maybe 10% of the time. Like, this is how you do a bicep curl. This is how you do a chest press. And then you're going to do it for 90% of the time. And it's a workout for you. And if you want to get better, you have to get more coordinated and you have to learn these skills. I very much treat public speaking as a motor skill. No different to learning to juggle or learning to play an instrument or learning to swing a golf club or whatever. It's a complicated thing, and I want to train people like that. So I'm not a public speaking trainer who will just rabbit on at people. I want some more engagement from people, and I want people to have a go, and I give them feedback, and then I have an increasingly more full attempt at it. And that's my why. So Terry, I'm interested. So you're a web designer. Why did you get into web design?
Oh, that's a very good question. Why I got into web design as a skill to learn, I suppose, would be because I loved creating something. I was always really creative, creating something out of nothing and then make it like alive. So yeah, it's like translating just an idea into a reality. That's why I got into it as a skill. But in terms of like why I started my business, I was doing some stuff on the side and I very quickly realized that I just loved being a part of other people's journeys, especially when they were trying to do something really, really good. They were trying to give back in meaningful ways and they had a lot of heart behind what they were doing. Being involved in someone else's journey in that aspect and being able to translate their vision into something that exists was like the most meaningful shit ever, basically.
The most meaningful shit ever. Terry, 2021, great quote. So that's kind of like you could elaborate further if you wanted to as well, Terry. It's kind of thinking of your why statement as a little bit like your superhero origin story. It's the thing that you're championing, or another way of looking at it, if we go back a slide, is it's the party that you're throwing. And you know that your ones and twos want to go to that party because it's a rocking party and that's where all their friends are, that kind of thing. So there would definitely be businesses, Terry, that are in the absolute epicenter of your target market. And, what is it about the way that your business is structured that is for them?
The way that it's structured, we're entirely collaborative in the fact that it's not, you're like, I'm on a website and then we just go and do stuff behind the scenes. It's a journey in itself. So we work super closely with everyone. We go into such great detail to understand their business philosophy, who they are as a person, their why, which I think is one of the most important things to learn out of all of it as well, so that we can make sure that that vision is translated, but that they're along the way with it. It's not a here you go kind of deal. It is, we're doing this together. And they're the people that are our target audience because they really want that as well. And we've become friends with everyone that we work with. So it's nice.
That's cool. Like a web designer that's not just nuts and bolts. They're actually there they want to understand your story and to understand that which makes you unique and to project it on a website for the world to understand and see clearly is an extra level of attention and detail that you might not get from someone who has the ability to simply say copy paste a website efficiently, and then you might quickly be able to look like other people, but Terry wants you to look like you online, and wants to attract the people who want to come to that party as well. So I'm going to write that down. Oh, that's great. I got note taking engagement. Fantastic. Terry, do you reckon there's another opportunity to put a Q&A out there for people?
Yeah, go for it.
I'd love to hear people's professional superhero origin story, like your why. Think about, say, Batman. He went to the opera with his parents. Because of crime, he lost his parents, and he spent his whole life trying to rid the world of crime, because he never wanted someone to go through what he did. Similar for like myself, I used to not be confident, but then I learned some skills from a mentor to then become very confident and capable of public speaking. And I wanted people to be able to learn those skills that they should have been, but weren't taught at school. And, that's my why for doing it. I feel like it's a simple, teachable skill that other people should learn, and people do better if they speak better. And so that's my why. And we've just heard from Terry before, there's lots of websites out there, but it takes a little extra effort to get your personal story out there. It involves collaboration to make it happen. So, Terry likes to really get into the middle of people, the heartstrings of people's business, so that she can understand and make a great website with her hands, and get it out there.
Yeah, so, I love the making you look like you kind of thing. That's totally a part of it as well. I think, like, really understanding people's uniqueness and understanding them as a person, because your business is an extension of you, especially if you're like the sole person in it, or it's not like I inherited this business, it's started from the bottom, now I'm here kind of thing. So that's some good wording, Tom. Thanks for that.
Cool. So I would love to hear people's professional or their business superhero origin story, because that's really why you're in this, not just for a reason, but for your reason,
Yeah, for sure. I don't have anything in the chat just yet, but please, people, if you are typing it out, feel free to finish it or send it and we can revisit it at the end. I do have a couple of questions, Tom, if you want to answer any of those, or you want to, yeah. Amazing. Okay, cool. So how do you, and this is something that I struggle with as well, even though I've been networking for like 4 years or 5 years, basically. How, when you walk into an event or a networking group or whatever it is, how would you walk up to a group of people? Because that's often what happens. People are staying in little bunches and stuff like that. What would you recommend as a way of breaking into it in a way that is conductive of those conversations that you want to be having with people?
Oh, so you see a group of people, they all seem to be having a really good time, and you want in too. Here's a few rules of thumb. If those people seem to there's one rule of thumb. If they're in like a really closed circle and it seems like a bit of a hush-hush sort of private chat, would not approach, because that's a closed group. So you don't want to be that dickhead who sort of comes in with like a pre-rehearsed sentence, and tries to, I don't know, make themselves known in a really artificial kind of way. That's a rare example. I think in a networking session, you'd rarely get a really hush-hush sort of group like that. What's more likely going to happen is that those people are going to be standing in almost like a semicircle, which is like an open shape. So imagine you're walking through here, you've got like a semicircle shape. You're there to network. So you'd be surprised how often it is just to come up with a big like, hi, I'm Tom, nice to meet you. What's also quite, it's always had like a big effect on me is when people actually make those really animated, positive introductions from a distance. So instead of like, walking up really quietly up to them and then just going, hi, my name's Tom, that kind of thing, to actually like a few steps back away, just feel like, hi, like, I just want to have a chat. I want to get to know you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you're sort of excited from it. The reason for that, and I'll give you a bit of a scientific public speaking answer to this, is that in most of our days, and we only hear sound at a conversational level of intensity, and that's what we're used to. And that's just like a low energy state. But here's the thing, humans are very empathetic creatures. And one thing that's programmed into us is how to detect changes in sound. If you could imagine, I don't usually like using caveman analogies, and I'm going to use one for the sake of simplicity. Imagine if you were running, or you were out thousands of years ago, you're a caveman, cavewoman, and you had to survive. One thing that's built into humans is when they hear like a sudden noise, like a clap or like a bang, that kind of stuff, we jump and we startle. It's kind of like a fear or something like that that's built into us, where humans are very attuned to changes in sound. And that's why we can block out things like background noise. And that's why we hear a thunderclap, and get excited, when it comes out of nowhere, that kind of thing. So when you approach a group, to have sort of a sound or a gesture that's above conversational level and it's passionate and it's exciting, humans are empathetic creatures and they'll feel a little bit of that excitement and we're more likely to be welcomed. And what you're doing is you're leveraging the fact that you're at a networking event, which is an excuse to meet new people. And people will therefore be open and welcome to that. So just like a hi, I'm Tom, and just like announce your name and just say, I'd like to get to know you, like nice to meet you, that kind of thing. Just like a compliment, and say it in a way that's congruent to how excited you are to sort of meet that person. Now, here's another thing I want to mention. Don't go overboard. No one likes a psychopath. So one thing I teach in my courses, one thing I'm going to say right now, is it's good to have a way of measuring how intense you are, and it gives you a way of dialing back or being aware of things. So the way I'm speaking right now is a 5. It's out of 10, say, like it's very conversational. You're used to hearing this tone. And just to prove that humans are alert to sound changes, the next thing I'm going to say is very important. So you probably notice by slowing down and pausing, you notice the change in sound. To use another analogy, that's kind of like, imagine a dog and you've got a ball and you make like a sudden movement and you shake it. Dogs are going to notice the movement. Humans notice sound. And so if I'm speaking in a conversational tone, but all of a sudden I get really passionate about something, I'm really excited about this. This is really exciting to me. You'll notice the change in intensity as well. It's a little bit louder, it's a bit faster, it's more animated. That might be that level of intensity I got to, like this level where I'm a bit buzzing and excited, is maybe like a 7 out of 10. An 8 out of 10 would be like almost in your face, and a 9 or a 10 would just be bouncing off the walls, Robin Williams style, that kind of thing. And this is conversational, and this is sort of a little bit under conversational, a bit lethargic almost, and I can get even slower in this again. That's like a 2 or a 3. So you can gauge where you are, and I guess in a professional environment, you never want to go above a 7. So this is just, having it on like a scale is just going to help you know if you're not giving enough or you're giving too much. And yeah, if you really want to delight people, try just announcing like, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Tom, that sort of thing from a bit of a distance. and try to cross that physical threshold as quickly as possible with like a handshake or something like that. And compliments like, I really want to get to know you, or like, I love your hair, or, that sort of thing that's not too overt, and that kind of stuff will go a long way to breaking up a crowd. And just remember that you're leveraging the fact that you're there to network.
I do have an origin story.
Hey, this is an origin story.
Okay, so one part of my business, Bob Blown Photography, is I create headshots for businesses. I work in this area because I wanted to help the huge number of businesses out there with low consistency of their team's imagery style.
I like that. So headshots, Bob Blown, he's a fantastic photographer. I've seen some of his work. It's got a great logo too, of like a camera with a B on it. I'm fascinated by logos. And yeah, wants to make people look fantastic in groups, and I've seen some of his event photography as well. It's fantastic. I like that origin story. Is there any more questions, Terry?
I've got a couple, but I might leave them until the end so that you can.
Cool. All right, let's make progress on the theory, and then we'll reach these questions at the end. All right, so that was just to recap quickly. We've talked about interest hill, so knowing if you're talking to the right person, and the second thing is have, want, and why statements, which is, are you saying productive things? Are you showing that you're wealthy in some regard? Are you trying to tease out, like something that other people are proud of or wealthy in by want statements? And if, once you've got someone interested in you, are they actually interested in you specifically or just your area? What separates you from other people? And a why statement, something akin to an origin story, or the thing that you're trying to champion, is going to help make them realize that they want you and not someone else. All right. Now, this is basically the last part of the talk, and it's super simple, but it's super important. And this is the biggest mistake that I see all the time. People not turning talk into action. The mere exchange of business cards is not enough. Often, once the moment is gone, it gets sort of awkward to pick up the conversation again and to arrange a time to meet somebody or to catch up again. People get busy, it delays, you're more likely to miss the opportunity. When you're leaving, it's a fantastic opportunity to try and block out time in that person's calendar. So it's just as simple as going like, oh, and just knowing that that networking event is not going to be the best time to have the best conversation. It'll wrap up, they'll say last drinks, you got to get out of here. The venue needs us out of here by, this time, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be able to have a full conversation. You're not going to be able to come prepared and all that kind of stuff to meet that specific person. So it's just as simple as saying things like, like, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for the business card. I've got your email here. Are you free Monday next week or tomorrow? Do you want to do before work, or a coffee at 10:30 or a lunch, or wine? I think cool people like to network over wine, and it's sort of a bit of some people might not expect that either. But once you've blocked out time in someone's calendar, you'll find that it's sticky. When it's sticky, it's kind of like, even if they turn around and say, oh, I can't do Monday morning like we talked about, they're more likely to go, but I can do Monday afternoon or the next day or the next week. And you've got some sort of permanence there. And permanence is sort of what you want. You're basically locking in that better conversation that's going to happen in a more private environment and all that kind of thing. So turning talk into action, the easiest thing you can do is block out time in each other's calendar. Now, here's the other thing. Sometimes you need to gracefully exit the conversation if you're finding that you're talking to a 3 or a 4 and not a 1 or a 2. And so the best way to let 3s and 4s know that you sort of gracefully need to move on is just to go like, is to basically thank them for the conversation. Just like, oh, thanks, Terry. Thanks for your business card. Just before this place wraps up, I really want to speak to X over there. I heard they do this. I just needed, I came here because I wanted to speak to them. So do you mind if I catch you afterwards? And I don't actually have to catch Terry afterwards, if that makes sense. It can be for Terry to prompt that conversation again with me. But the fact that, again, we're at a networking event gives you license to say, we've only got a limited time here, and I'd like to spend some of that time over there. I'll catch you up afterwards. But then when you get to 1s and 2s, it's good to say, oh, we've only got so much time, but I really want to catch up with coffee, or wine. And, can I send you a calendar invite? And really try to lock in that time. And once you put a lock in that time, it's kind of like having a moat around it. You'll find that it's harder for them to come up with excuses not to see you again. And you're just ensuring that life doesn't get in the way between you and that better conversation. And I strongly encourage that you convert a good conversation into an outcome by something as simple as a calendar invite. And with that, we basically come to the end of the presentation.
Woohoo, that was awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. You're a bloody wealth of knowledge, and that was really interesting. I was going to say as well with the whole why statement thing, that's like, I don't know if you have the same opinion, but so helpful vice versa as well. Like if I catch up with someone for coffee, and it's one of the first times I've met them, or I met them briefly at networking and then we caught up for coffee, it's generally one of the first questions I ask people is, why do you do what you do? What are you most passionate about as a part of it and things like that? Because those, if I really want to help another business, so if I want to find, if I might have a client that they would love an introduction to, for example, I find that knowing that is so instrumentally helpful as well to making sure that I'm connecting people in the right way, and I'm connecting people who like vibe on the same level, I guess, as well, in terms of why they do what they do and that sort of thing. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Again, I just have to come back to the point that when you find someone's why, you should have a good idea for what kind of party they're throwing in their business and whether or not it's something that you want to come to. It should be exciting to get to know that person more, or to refer people to them because you're like, that person does it in a way that I really appreciate. They do it because they if they're a lawyer, they care and they spend a little extra time not missing issues. Or if they're a plumber, they take their shoes off before they come into the house. They've got like some philosophy that everyone's house is like their own, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I love hearing those little things because it just makes that person special. And if you really resonate with the thing that they're championing, and you've heard that because they've given you a why statement, it sort of makes it easy to pick that person instead of their competitor or something like that.
Yeah, most definitely. And you find out whether you match values and things like that as well. So it's also one of our, like as a business, it's one of our things that we ask people in our first catch up. So we always ask what their why is so that we know whether we're a good fit for them, because if we don't mesh well with their values, then I don't think that we should work together. They're better off working with someone else. So it's kind of like a criteria thing as well. Not to sound exclusive or anything, but I have a couple of questions as well. And also just a general comment. So Bob again said, I liked your comments about the business being a party. My business is a party. I love parties. I work closely with a world of generally happy people who want to have their best self captured and on display. I help to create and show off their best images, which is so nice.
I love it.
I'm going to have to copy and paste that one.
The party analogy runs deep too, because imagine throwing a party at your house, like an actual party with balloons and cake and drinks and all that kind of stuff. And all these people show up who you just don't get along with. That would suck. You're not going to spend most of your time partying and doing that which you love. You're going to spend most of the time, having people sit around not dancing if you want to dance, and you're going to have to quietly ask them to leave when they start fights. So when you attract, you'd appreciate this more than anyone, Terry, on the website. If you try to be all things to all people, you'll find that you spend too much of your time, discounting yourself or getting, inquiries from people who want you to change who you are to fit them. Does that make sense? So if you're like a luxury provider, why would you bother with people who are very, cost sensitive or trying to be thrifty and that kind of stuff? You'd prefer to deal with people who are just like, I have a problem. I need you to take full responsibility of it. And here's all the information I can possibly give you. And I want you to collaborate and make it personal and, take the extra effort and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. If someone came to you for a copy paste website and then said, no, but actually change this and change that, you'd be like, no, it's not collaborative anymore. Get out of my house.
It reminds me of the Queen and the Nuggets thing that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's an inside joke from But at the end of the day, it's really just rest assured there's enough ones and twos for you out there that you don't waste time on threes and fours. That's that paradigm. So let's have some questions, Shay.
I love it. Yeah, awesome. So I just got a couple of questions. So how you were talking a little bit earlier about when people are getting into like, oh, what you do on the weekend? How your kids doing? How do you pull people out of small talk and back into the real important stuff?
What's great is that you don't even need a segue with having want statements. You can just be like, imagine a conversation that goes like this. So how'd you go on the weekend? Or like, do you have any pets? Because, oh yeah, I've got a dog and its name's Spike and it's a Jack Russell Terrier. Cool. One thing I've been doing recently with my business is this, and I've been wanting to do more stuff with that. That might seem like abrupt, but again, you're in a networking environment. So the jarring change of conversation in a networking setting is not going to make you look like an alien or a weirdo. They're not going to go like walk away from you. Like if you say something like that, it's pretty clear that, you've changed gears kind of thing. So don't worry too much about clever segues and that kind of stuff. Just go straight back into the have, want, and why statements. They're just always going to make progress in a conversation. And if you say stuff like, I've just been doing that in the business, they might say, oh, that's interesting. So this week I've done this in my business. And you'll find that might take the form of a have, want, why statement. And if you find that you're just not gelling, then what you do and what you want to do is something that person has literally no influence or interest in, then that's where you gracefully exit the conversation. And there's so many ways to gracefully exit the conversation. One of the best ones is to say, just before we run out of time or whatever, I just really need to speak to that person over there because we've only got limited time in the networking.
Yeah, I think people are pretty okay with if I need to go talk to someone else, whatever it is, I'm always just like, oh, it's so nice talking to you. I'm just going to go catch XYZ or whatever. It can be pretty easy. That was actually one of the questions as well before you covered it off, was how do you segue out of those conversations? But just be polite. It doesn't have to be a rude thing or anything like that.
Leverage the fact that you've only got limited time in the event. And so sorry, I'll come back to you, but I might be able to come back to you, but just in the time that we have, I really want to speak to that person. So if that's okay, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the last question that we've got, and if anyone has any other ones, please pop them in the chat while I'm just reading this out and we talk about it. But if I go into my why too much, do you think that people will maybe turn off or think that I'm too self-involved?
Good question. A good way to ensure that doesn't happen, and this is something my granddad taught me and it's stuck with me forever, is try to be a person who doesn't take more than their fair share of the conversation. So if you're finding you're talking more than 50% of the time, it's time to dial back, I think. But here's the thing. Some people aren't talkers and it's hard to get things out of them. Does that make sense? And that's why, again, I like to have want, why statements and then turning talk into action. Because if they are saying positive things to you, like you're explaining your why, they go, that's so interesting, all that kind of stuff. And you know that that person might have some work for you or some referrals or some connections that you want to get into. You just quickly segue into the calendar invite, and that's once that's locked in, then your shoulders can drop and you can talk about whatever you want and try to tease out more conversation out of that person. So if you've identified a one or a two, someone who's interested in what you do, and you've said what you do and they're interested and they want, and you're getting signs that they like you in particular, you just progress straight to the calendar invite thing. And then you're done. And you can spend the rest of your time, finding another person to have that conversation with, or just, once you're done networking, you can have fun. I guess.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that's the thing as well, right? If you open it, if you close it off with booking the calendar invite, then you can deep dive a little bit more in a better setting for it as well. So awesome. All right, I don't have any other questions. I would love, Tom, thank you so much. Oh my Lord, you are the most talented speaker. I have seen Tom also publicly speak full blown in front of how many people? A bunch of people, heaps of people. And is extremely engaging. There was a what do you call it? Nerf gun involved on a timer.
Nerf gun, as I call it, my nerves gun. Yeah.
That did get shot once towards Tom, and that was very, very awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. I know that you have some upcoming workshops and stuff. If you wanted to elaborate at all on that.
Cool. I'll have links hopefully later today, if not tomorrow. But I'm going to be running beginners public speaking courses in October, and then the next level, intermediate level, in November. Those are going to be common, for early starters, they're going to be on Zoom, and I'll get an Eventbrite link up so people can sign up for those. And for people who prefer in-person, I've got evening workshops at the Duke of Brunswick, plenty of parking around there in the city, got a small little classroom set up in there, and the opportunity to buy pub food and drinks if you're that way inclined. I love catching up with a drink with people afterwards. And basically the whole point, and Terry's done my course before, I just try to get people, like I said it before, it's a teachable skill that you wish you got taught in school. So I get people learning how to speak off the top of their head without any prior preparation, so they spend less time writing speeches. We do fun activities where I get you to pitch something that's already been invented and teaching you how to not just ramble, but structure your thoughts in a way that achieves an outcome by the end of it. One of my favorite sessions includes what I talked about before, changing your voice in such a way that you get people's attention immediately before you say the most important thing in your speech. That way, the important stuff doesn't get missed. You get people's attention, and then you know, like say the important thing. And that's really fun because we get to do famous speeches from history, from movies, or from politicians, and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of fun. And then one of the other things that we do is use of visuals. So what makes a good and a bad PowerPoint slide, and we learn all the principles about what gets people's attention and how to flavor what you're saying with a thought such that people don't get lost and, you know, in your presentation, whether it's super technical or persuasive or funny or whatever. So I love running those courses, and I'll be starting on Monday, I think it's the 11th of October. Yeah, after the public holiday. And we'll be going all the way through to the end of the year, basically.
Yay. All right. Everyone get amongst it. As someone that has already done it before, I'm going to be joining in on the intermittent classes as well, because it's so much fun, as well as just extremely helpful, especially in your space of business networking or anything like that as well. So thank you once again. And Tom has already given me permission to say, if you want to reach out and you have any questions, or you want to learn a little bit more about his courses, please reach out to his email, which is on the slide that's currently up. And as well, if you have any questions, or maybe you want to come on a webinar, feel free to reach out to me as well via my email. And I'm going to be sharing, so Tom, if you have links and stuff, I will share it in an email out to everyone as well, so you can hop along and register, as well as just the video recording if you want to revisit anything that Tom's talked about that you found particularly helpful as well. So on that note, I just want to give an extra thank you to anyone that chose to donate as a part of their ticket. As if anyone doesn't know, I am hosting these webinars once a month, and I'm just collaborating with a fellow awesome person that I really love. So feel free to come along next time as well. We're just kind of mixing it up with people like Tom and other people that I thought would really help in the business community. But as a part of that, we are donating to Skylight, which is a local mental health non-for-profit that do really incredible work with families and supporting individuals who are experiencing mental illness, which is ever so prevalent right now with COVID and stuff like that. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tom, again for coming. And I'll catch everyone next time.
Awesome, Terry.
Enjoy. Bye.